Today, we're designing and laser cutting a spiderweb candle box for Halloween. To design this project, I use a software called Rhinoceros and start with a previous file that I designed for this Frank Lloyd Wright inspired candle box. The only change I need to make is the pattern at the center, which will be a spiderweb. I start by drawing a box around the previous pattern, which will be the extent of the pattern that we're designing today. Then I draw a line to find the center of the rectangle and draw a circle from that point. The first circle has a diameter of roughly 5 inches, and I use the offset command to create copies that are half of an inch smaller. Now I select the line and use the mirror command to copy it at various angles. All of these red lines will be our guide for the spiderweb that we're designing. After looking at the guides, I decided to delete most of them so that I could focus on one quadrant, which we'll duplicate later to create a symmetrical pattern. I used the trim command to cut all the excess lines and circles down to one quadrant we're using for the pattern. It's time to create the pattern. I'm using one of the curved lines and snapping points at the intersections of the circles and lines that we drew earlier as our guide. I'll offset the curved lines a 32nd of an inch to both sides so that we have a 16th inch thick curve. This is usually the thinnest that I go on projects where I plan to use 1/8 inch plywood for an intricate pattern. Next, I offset the lines, delete the initial ones at the center, and use the trim command to clean up all the overlapping lines. By the end of this process, the pattern will look like this in one quadrant. To create the final pattern, I draw a line to find the center of the rectangle and use the erase circle tool to duplicate the pattern to all the quadrants. Now we can use the trim tool to delete all the lines outside of the rectangle and to finalize the design. This includes trimming the pattern with the rectangle as well. This is how the final spiderweb design looks. The last step to this design process is to create a 3D model to check our work. All we need to do is select all the lines, use the extrude command, and pull them to the thickness of the material we're using. I'm using 1/8 inch plywood for my candle box. Now we can use the rotate and move command to move each piece into place. This is what it looks like when it's fully assembled. Once I'm satisfied with my design, I bring over my 1/8 inch Eco Birch plywood, apply paper masking tape to both sides to protect it from scorches and burns from the laser. I also took a few pieces of trace paper from a book that I bought at an art store. I place the Eco Birch plywood in my laser cutter and start cutting each piece. Candle boxes like this one are a simple project for any new laser cutter owner to design and make. The best part about a design like this one is that you can focus on changing the pattern and keep the rest of the box the same. You can see how this project used my previous design for the Frank Lloyd Wright inspired candle box, and all we did was change the cutouts to a spiderweb. Next week, we'll take this file and create a fun ghost pattern with the same spiderweb and candle box design. I assembled this entire project on one sheet of plywood that's 20 inches wide by 11 inches long. It took about 45 minutes to cut every piece for this project. When all the pieces were cut, I brought them to my work table and removed the paper masking tape from every piece. I took my time doing this so that I wouldn't break any of the thinner pieces. I brought over the sheets of trace paper that I laser cut to be a little longer than the overall spiderweb design. I recommend just cutting the trace paper by hand since it's not worth the time and effort of laser cutting it. I apply super glue along the perimeter of the pattern, align the trace paper, and glue it into place. I repeat this with all 4 sides. To assemble the box, I use a super glue called MaxiCure and apply it to the inside of the tabs on both sides of one piece. I bring over the 2 adjacent sides, line up the tabs, and press them into place. The moment we join the tabs together, you can see the 2 sides stand on their own, which makes it easier to assemble the rest of the sides. When the box was assembled, I brought over the base which holds all the walls together. I aligned the bottom of the tabs with the slots in the base and pressed them down to attach them together. Then I brought over my LED tea light candle, placed it inside, and the project is complete. This is how the spiderweb candle box came out. It's a great decoration and gift that you can give away or sell for Halloween. With or without a candle inside, the intricate spiderweb pattern really stands out and is captivating to look at. If you enjoyed this project, check out my other woodcraft videos and consider subscribing. I'll see you again next week.